So this first one's just a little bit of an overview of General Mills, if you don't know what General Mills does. And the next video after it is another 50 seconds. So it's 150 years of General Mills. We've been a little over 150 years. And it kind of just gives a little bit of history in a pretty nice way. So hopefully we'll get to see those.
While we're waiting, has anybody used any General Mills products? What's that? The only one I've used is Cheerios.
Cheerios is a good one.
Is it a good one?
Yeah, it's been around. Lowers your cholesterol. I could just go on and on
So
about
I'm
the
sure there
value.
are, how many products do you say?
Oh, I don't know the number of products we have. It's
Well, I'll look it up on the web.
it's a lot, but
It's funny, the only one I remember is Cheerios.
yeah. Usually, a lot of times people go, "Hey, you make Fruit Loops," and we're like, "No, we don't make those." So, but it's all good. Hip, how's it going? And I don't know any good jokes, so I can't tell you those.
How long have you been with General Mills?
I've been with General Mills 25 years this last January 3rd. So seen a lot of change in General Mills. I've worked at 2 of our manufacturing plants. So I started off in California. We had a plant in Lodi, California. And I started off just as a intern and started in engineering there. And then I actually worked also at our Cedar Rapids, Iowa plant, where we produce a lot of Cheerios. So then I came to corporate, and I've been at corporate for about 15 years, mainly in the controls and information systems group. And so my current role is really looking at Industry 4.0, smart manufacturing. How is General Mills going to leverage this? What should we be doing first? How should we, tackle this stuff? And so one of the things I'm going to be covering here is really around, here's one of our first kind of pilots or proof of concepts of how we're kind of dipping our toe in to understand, what's the details of this? Because the devil's always in the details, right? So we're going to do a small proof of concept, and I'll walk through that hopefully here. And it's really going to look at probably mainly IoT, a little bit of cloud. We'll probably move into predictive analytics. We're hoping to kind of go that. But the first part of this is really around business case. So we're very much a packaged food manufacturing, right? So a lot of our performance is around packaging because they're mainly our bottlenecks, right? So we don't do OEE per se. We have our own kind of standard that we've developed to do kind of mainly machine downtime. I would say it's very close to OEE, except for it doesn't really have the quality piece in that. But we use that a lot. And the downside of what we do is it takes a lot of time and it's pretty expensive to do. So I won't give numbers, but it'll average between 5 and 6 figures just to do data collection to help you understand. And so as consumers are changing how they eat and all those kind of things, we have gone from projects, capital projects, where we have a new product that we will put in and that line will run 5 or 10 years to, these numbers will be wrong, but it'll be directionally right. And I think this is overall General Mills. Go ahead. So that's kind of that high overview of what we do, over 100 brands. I don't know if you guys noticed, we did just acquire Blue Buffalo, so we actually have a dog food company now as well, so we own Blue Buffalo. And then this is General Mills in 50 seconds. Okay. So I don't know if you caught some of that stuff in there. It's pretty cool. We have a great history, right? So I don't know if anybody's been to Minneapolis, but there's a TV station called WCCO, and we started off as Washburn Company. So the story goes is competitors bought up all the radio time, and so General Mills basically just built their own radio station, and that stayed. So that stands for Washburn Crosby Company. So it's tons of interesting facts like that. So we have a great history. Anyway, to go on, as I was talking about, so this business case around how are we going to measure our plant floor equipment? So we have a tool today. It's very standard. We use it on all our equipment. It's OE-like. It does both like a unit op level. Here's how my unit op's performing, as well as then it takes into account what the bottleneck is, and it looks across the system to say, my bottleneck is down because of this unit, so that's where it's getting charged to. So it's great. The hurdles is, as I was talking about, cost, speed to do it. So we actually go in and touch a PLC, we add code in there, and that kind of leads to that next part where you get a packaging piece of equipment in, now you're going in and putting code in their actual equipment, and they kind of tend to say, well, now that you've changed that PLC code, can I really own up to the performance in that? So those are always dialogues, right, that we have to have. So people generally don't want you in their PLC and touching it. And the next one is, as we have more variety of products, we tend to not do a big, huge capital investment all the time. We'll go to an external supply chain location and actually have them do that startup or that product. So minimal investment to make sure that that product is going to be out there and on the market for a while. It's more expensive, but then if that product stays on the market, we'll internalize it and drive the savings there. So external supply chain, we really don't have a really good view into what's going on in that location, right? So they'll tell us how they're performing, but we don't really have a good line of sight. So one of the things I wanted to make sure I didn't overlook is we participate in the SESME, or this Clean Energy Smart Manufacturing Innovation Institute. It's a government-funded one. It's very much analogous to the MDDI in Chicago. So we're working with them. John Dyke, who's the CEO of that, is a fantastic guy. He's doing a great job with it. So they're building up a platform to help with manufacturing and drive manufacturing in America. And Atology is a company that we heard about through our relationship with SESME. So as we were talking about this and how could we do this differently, right? So the big thing for us is trying to get out of the way we normally think about how we do things and look at it differently. We said, what if we just looked at a stack light? Couldn't we get the machine-based state by looking at a stack light? And we said, yeah, well, how would we do that? And then Atology actually had a solution for that. So again, this digital transformation, we're really starting to try to think differently, and we wanted to say, how do we do it in a different way that could kind of be lower cost, faster, could work in an external supply chain location. So our current solution is pretty straightforward. We put code in a PLC, that code basically cranks out both machine state, if I'm up or down, and if it is down, what fault has caused that machine to go down. That goes to our SCADA system, goes to our MES system, and we get reports out. So not rocket science there. I'm sure lots of people do it that way. So what we talked about doing, and we're doing this proof of concept, is what if I just looked at the andon light or looked at the stack light or whatever, and what if I did that in a way that didn't touch a PLC and didn't touch a network in our plants? That I could just drop this in, send the data to the cloud, and then start getting reports off it. So this solution isn't going to be the exact same solution as what we have today, right? So today we have fault information, a lot of other stuff, but this is a starting solution. So we just did a product, and I think it's out. It's Dunkers, I think it's called, but it's I don't know if you guys remember, we used to have Dunkaroos. If you guys remember that product, you're old. But we came up with another one where it's yogurt with these sticks, right? And so we did that project, and they basically said, we can't afford to put downtime tracking on this. It's too expensive. We're not doing it. So this is another opportunity for us to go in and say, can I do something for 1/10 of the cost of what it normally would cost us? And in my head, IoT should be 1/10 of the cost of what normal solutions were. So if I've looked at RFID solutions. I think you could use an iBeacon at 10th the cost of that. So there's opportunities in this IoT space. So what we'd like to get to, and this is some of the stuff I think Will was talking about, is there's other ways to get that fault information without touching the PLC too, right? So what if I put a camera and just point it to the HMI? Generally, the HMI always has the fault in the same spot, right? I can do OCR and just read what the fault is. So now I can have state machine, the actual fault of the machine. I can push that up and start correlating it to other things. The good thing would be is how do I now have the system start looking at I guess the machine learning, and I don't know if this is the right terminology, but how can it start looking at my system, right? I've got 10 unit ops tied together. I know which one's the bottleneck. Can the system start telling me that if I just reduce the mean time between failure on one unit, that would drive another 6% of throughput on my bottleneck? So instead of having a system engineer go through this, how can I have machine learning with just some base information start helping me understand how to improve my system? And it's not going to tell you what to do. It's just going to shine a flashlight for you. So this is kind of where we'd like to see it going. And this is my last slide, I think. I think you guys can realize the benefits and opportunities really are going to be, how do I do this faster at a lower cost? I might not have exactly all the information, but it helps me improve. And I'm not going to have an investment that I'm going to be throwing away possibly and do that. Vendor relationships. I now no longer am going to be touching any PLC code. So the vendor is now held accountable just to say your performance, I haven't touched machine, I'm just looking at your stack light, you need to do that. And then also in the vendor, as far as our external supply chains, it actually helps us give a relationship and understand how they're doing, and we can actually then come back and help them. So a lot of our external supply chain relationships, we treat almost exactly like one of our plants. So we have system engineers that support those plants and stuff like that. And the last one, and probably the biggest one about this pilot that I'm excited about, is what are we going to learn? So we're going to do something totally different. I know there's engineers, I've talked to some of our control engineers, and they're like, well, why don't you just use the PLC? I mean, we have the infrastructure. Why don't we just do it the way we've done it all the time? So hopefully we'll get some, hey, we can do this differently, and we can understand how to leverage the cloud. So what we've talked about doing is taking this proof of concept and going to Siemens and saying, how would you do this? Going to PTC and say, how would you do this? Go to other vendors, go to Microsoft and say, how would you guys do this? And not give them the whole answer, just say, how would you guys do this? And if they do that pilot, it kind of helps us understand not only how to get this information, how do I deploy IoT? How do I manage that IoT device? How do I do it? So it's really helping us with a actual business value case, kind of understand those systems and how it would work. And that was it.